forget what you've heard about Vietnam. Let's find out what it's really like.
Imagine an economy that, in the span of a few decades, catapulted from one of the poorest in Asia to a growth rate of 8.02% in 2022, outpacing even the giants like India and China. This isn't a hypothetical scenario, it's the reality of Vietnam. With a GDP per capita that increased nearly tenfold from under $300 in the 1980s to $2,800 in 2020.
If you're watching this video, there's a very good chance you're thinking about teaching English in Vietnam. Vietnam is definitely a great place to teach English. I got my start out there. I ended up coming out to Vietnam, working as a public school teacher, and within 4 to 5 years, I had my own business and I was location independent. All that's possible because of my time in Vietnam, and I owe the country a great debt of gratitude. Now, that being said, there is a lot of misinformation about teaching English in Vietnam online. And that's what today's video is going to be about, guys. We are going to tell you what no one tells you about teaching English in Vietnam. We're going to give you a no BS look at what it's really like to be a teacher, what it's really like to work out there, and what you can expect from the industry and from working and living within the Vietnamese culture. So I think this is going to be an interesting video for a lot of you guys who are not in country. And for some of you who are in country, I'd love to hear in the comments section whether you agree with us or you don't agree with us. So please feel free to leave any kind of opinions or thoughts you have in the comment section. Today, I am here with Uncle Hollywood. He is a longtime friend, and he was one of our original customers when we first started helping people find jobs. Most of the people who I've worked with over the years, I've maintained good relations with, and many of them still make content with me, and we're still friends. And Hollywood is definitely one of those people. He's been now working in Vietnam for a number of years, so he has a real insight into what it's like living and working as a teacher. He's based in Ho Chi Minh City, so we're going to have a chat a little bit about what life is like living and working in Ho Chi Minh City and some of his other perspectives on Vietnam. We're going to try to get a little bit of an idea of, what is the reality, guys, right? Because there's a lot of people online. If you guys are in Facebook groups or if you guys are looking online for information on teaching in Vietnam, there's a lot of people who have a vested interest in preventing you from knowing the truth, because there's a lot of people out here that I personally call gatekeepers, sad little losers who are basically angry at the world, and they want to make sure that you don't get anywhere near their golden egg. And teaching English for them is the best that they're ever going to do in their entire lives. So for them, they'll protect it fiercely. You have to understand, in a country like Vietnam, you could be a complete jack off from a place like the United States, Canada, Britain, living in your mother's basement. And then next thing you know, in Vietnam, you have a girl who's out of your league. You're being paid fairly well, and you have access to the upper middle class. So there are people who will definitely fight to try to keep that other people out of that. So in their mind, they perceive it as protecting their little golden egg, you know? For me personally, I never felt very threatened by competition, because when I was teaching, I actually had really no trouble finding jobs at all. I was a fairly desirable candidate. I'm from America. I'm in good physical condition. I'm likable, I'm outgoing, I'm happy to talk. So for me, it was not hard to find work. But for some guy who's like, fat, missing teeth, kind of maybe on the older side, for them, this is about as good as it's going to get. And a lot of them will spend a lot of time trolling online to make sure that you don't come there and mess with their perfect little situation. Now, it's not only them, it's also these academic narcissists who think that their degree in gender studies somehow makes them a more superior human being to you, whether you have a degree in, English or a bachelor's degree in anything. The Vietnamese don't really care too much when it comes to employment outside of maybe some of the top international schools that will have very specific requirements like teaching licenses or education degrees. So there is a lot of confusion around degrees. There's a lot of confusion around TEFLs. There's a lot of confusion around what's it like to work in the country. So today, the mission of this whole conversation is to clear a lot of that up. Well, I guess let's start off by talking about when you were first coming to Vietnam versus living there now. What were the misconceptions you had, and what do you feel like you see differently now that you've been in the country for a long time?
Well, as far as living, I really came here not expecting anything. I knew it was going to be because my brother's married to a Vietnamese girl, so she kind of told me some things, but nothing to really prepare you because it's like so 100% different. But it's simple to pick up very quick. Just like, you're riding a scooter or a motorbike, your head's got to be like the exorcist, but it's like a chaos that is controlled. Don't get me wrong, there are some idiots that are driving everywhere in the world, but it's pretty quick to pick up. That was one of the things I really went in not expecting anything, but it was going to, and not speaking Vietnamese, I thought it was going to be a lot harder. But it kind of just, like I said, it's simple. They're simple. They're happy. They want to talk to you. So that made the transition a little easier. Like some other countries I've lived in, where they're just nasty and it's harder to get into it as quick. So that would be my first thing. Was it's kind of simple to get right into the system.
Yeah, so you're talking about things like the traffic and the culture. It wasn't really such a big adjustment for you, but I could definitely see how for some people it would be a big adjustment, especially the working environment. How do you find business culture to be different than in the West?
Well, that's what I was going to kind of get into with the teaching. Teaching is kind of, that is definitely cultural. If you are lucky enough to have a teacher aide that either one cares or can actually speak and translate English okay, they definitely they're set in their ways. Like, let's say you have a 35-minute class. You don't normally start for the first almost 10 minutes, 8 minutes, because the teacher's doing all, from around the school. So you have to learn you're not teaching, you're not going to be the grand master of teachers. You're going to have 15 minutes to show some flashcards, but you have to have, don't sit on the desk. There's little things like they'll go, no, don't do that. You just got to remember these teachers will not like you, and then you'll have problems. But as far as the teaching point, don't go in like you're going to change the world. You're a rookie. So you have to learn how they want you to teach. It's not what you're going to teach. They're going to tell you what to teach. Just make sure you do it with a smile and, and enthusiasm, and you'll be fine. That's my opinion.
I always liken it a little bit more to like an acting or a modeling job than it is to like actually teaching. Because like, for example, in the public schools, a lot of what it is state curriculum. So essentially you're just reading out of like the book, and the book is mandated by the government. And the mandate is that you do 1 page per day. So, I mean, it's not like you're in there reinventing the wheel, right? I mean, in public schools, public schools are kind of like, you just go through the motions. Training centers, you may need to be a little bit more creative because you have more one-on-one time. There's less kids. So it's a little bit more personal comparatively to a class of 50, 60 kids versus a training center that might have 6 kids, 7 kids, maybe even less.
Well, what, the big thing is they're going to want to see a lesson plan. So you got to learn to dupe them in the beginning and give them a lesson plan. If you can't make a copy lesson plan, AI it or something like that, to learn how to do it, you'll have more options for better schools to have a better quality of teaching. I've taught in schools that are so low compared to then you're teaching like the #1 school, and it's night and day. You might have one kid that knows English in that lower, and the teacher doesn't really even know English. And then the other school is you got kids that are teaching you English. So depending on where the school is, but no matter what school it is, you're still doing what they tell you to teach. It's just, is it more complicated, or is it just A, B, C, the alphabet? And once you pick that up and learn that you aren't going to change the world, but you are going to live pretty good on a teacher's salary, be able to travel and have more time for yourself, you'll get into the system a little quicker and learn it.
A lot of the people I've met who have had the hardest time adjusting to the work culture and to teaching are the narcissistic academic types, the types who think that like they need to like give these kids a proper British education, or that these kids should be doing this or doing that. When, you know, I think that a lot of them, you know, they're all hung up on their academia, but they miss the point of what is actually going on around them. But overall, it sounds like you've had a really positive experience, and you've gotten adjusted to the culture pretty quickly. I want to remind you guys that this video is sponsored by Safetywing. What's up, guys? I'm in Mysore, India. I'm chilling with this cow here. If this cow were to give me mad cow disease, I would want to have health insurance. And if you're going to live as an expat, you're going to want to have health insurance too. He's either biting me or licking me. He's licking me. Aw, hello.
It's so cute.
See, if I get sick from touching this cow, I want to have health insurance, right? So Safetywing is a good health insurance for people like me who travel around the world and live in interesting places. I'm covered. If I get sick in India, at least I got health insurance. Safetywing is designed for people who move around and who travel, so it's the perfect health insurance for people who live our kind of lifestyle. Yeah, so since you've been teaching, I think it's important that we help dispel some of the myths around teaching. I think one of the most common myths is about documentation. Let's talk about the situation with TEFLs, degrees, because there is a distinction. So, you know, there's a lot of people online who will make it seem like there's absolutely no way for you to gain employment in Vietnam without a degree. And I would say that like these people are definitely not telling the truth, like they're completely disingenuous. But that being said, having a degree does make your life a lot easier, and having a degree in something related to education can open up tremendous opportunities for you. So there is like some truth that there are certain segments of the market that if you don't have a degree are going to be difficult for you to access. But you know, for people coming from the West, I don't think they fully understand the scale of the market around teaching and how many training centers and how many public schools. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that.
That's no problem. I mean, jobs galore. That's all I can say. Like think of a nice waterfall, and all instead of water, it says jobs, 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 jobs. Because that's, you know, everywhere you look. Now, when they write what they're looking for, they have to write that. You know, you need this, you need that, because if the government looks at it and stuff, they can say, no, we put it in and, you know, we got it. That said, I think if you're in Vietnam, it's 100% easier to get the job than if you're outside Vietnam. Like right now, if you're thinking about it, move now. Right now, well, watch this video first, give it a thumbs up, share it, please make a comment, and then get on a plane, come to Vietnam, and you'll have many opportunities for jobs. Now, if you're going to do it online, you're going to tend to have issues. They might overcharge you for work permits, overcharge you for fees, and you really have no say. Then you might sign something that was documented to you, and now you have issues. So you have to make sure you have people like, you know, Reborn Abroad that has these contacts that you can trust and will succeed with these contacts. Where if you go through some companies, I don't want to say them, but, you know, starts with an A, ends with an X, you know, you might have problems. If you want to know what A and X is, you can leave a comment and I'll come back and tell you what it is. But as far as that goes, just get here now and you'll have probably a job within 4 weeks, depending how you get the hustle with the permits and stuff. That's what I'm gonna say. But you can definitely do it without a work permit. It's just the ease, I mean, of a degree, the ease of it is so much smoother. It will take so much less time to get your work permit. Sometimes it takes 3 to 4 weeks if it's all legit. Sometimes it could take 3 to 4 months or 6 months if it's not. Depends. You'll get it, but it won't be as smooth.
And I think that's a great point. So guys, like at the making of this video, this is peak hiring time. So we're coming into the beginning of the school term in September, and a lot of places are going to be looking. The way the market works, guys, is it's like everywhere in Asia, there's something at every price point, right? So there's something from, you know, the bottom of the market all the way to the top of the market and everything in between. It's not like in the West where after a certain point, it just falls off a cliff and you just, you know, there's no place in the market for you if you're under a certain income, you're on the street, basically. That's not the case in Vietnam. There's a different service or product available at every price point throughout the market, and it's no different from teaching. Whether you have a degree or you don't have a degree, whether you are a white native speaker, whether you're non-white, whether you're from a developing country and considered a not native speaker, there's all these little different slots in the market in which you can fit in. And Vietnam is a place where, even though officially you do need to have a degree in order to get a work permit, lots of things happen unofficially.
Yes, that is definitely 100%. Things happen when they shouldn't happen, but they happen. As far as you were talking about living conditions, you can live as low as $800 a month, and that's still, I was living, when I first moved here, my apartment with electric was $280 a month. And I had Wi-Fi, cable, parking, water. Because let's say you don't have a degree and you're making $18 an hour. You're still doing pretty good. If you're from maybe a non-native speaking English country, you might make $15 an hour. You're still
Less
doing
even
pretty
depends.
good. Yeah, you're still doing pretty good, even if you're making 15. So the lifestyle you want, like let's say you're a couple and you come here and you're combining your money and you're making $19 or $20 an hour. Now you're making what, three grand, 3,500. You're kings and queens. You're traveling, you're living it up. You're never thinking about, can I buy this? Can I do this? Even if you come by yourself, if you do it properly and you don't get sucked in to the partiness of Vietnam and the rooftops and everything, because you're making good money now that you didn't make in America. And instead of, you were at a dive bar, now you can afford to be on the 75th floor on a rooftop, and you're the master of your universe. If you don't get sucked into that and you do it right, you can be a little bit of that and still save a pretty decent amount of money. So, as far as money goes, with the degree, you're going to make probably more. Without a degree, you're still going to make good money for being in Vietnam, probably top 15%.
So I wanted to go back to the point you made for non-native speakers, native speakers. Like, this kind of thing does matter a lot. Superficial things like skin color, whether you're fat, whether you're in shape, whether you're bald, whether you look old, these type of things are actually heavily weighed by employers, which might seem odd to people coming from like the woke West. But in Southeast Asia, it's very, very common for someone to just come up to you and say you're fat or you're old, or, these, these things are
very honest. If you gain 1 pound, they know that, oh, you got fat, and they have no problem shooting you right down to a little bit. Like, oh, what's wrong with you? Your face looks very bad right now. Like, they'll say anything, but once you learn to say, okay, thanks, you move on, it's okay. But in the beginning, you're like, what? I'm fat.
My wife's 100% Italian and she's got dark skin. And I remember she was at the beach or something and came back tan, and her teacher's aide was like horrified that she had darker skin. And it's just like, she was so stressed out. Like you need to hide from the sun, you look terrible.
That's one thing. When I looked up research to come here, they're like, bring suntan lotion, because most of the lotion has bleach in it because they want to be white.
It's a beauty product.
So I brought some lotion because I was going to travel and stuff. They have it here. It's expensive. So, I mean, that might be a tip. Bring some lotions with you and you'll be okay. But here they tend to have bleach in them. So, because they want to be white. And then when you get tan, they're like, why are you dark? Like, I'll be riding them. I'll travel. Like this week, I went to Phan Thiet. It's near the beach. It's on the beach by Monet. If you go to my channel, Hollywood's Journey, I got some videos on there. You can check it out. I'm riding a motorbike and I take my shirt off, and they're like, why don't you take your shirt off? Like, that's weird to them. Like, what? You're a foreigner. But then meanwhile, there'll be 3 Vietnamese guys with no shirt flying by. But for a foreigner, it's weird. Right. I don't know. Just bringing up the tanning, it was just funny because I get looked at like that all the time.
Well, they value white skin, and if you're if you're white, like that's about as good as you can do in Vietnamese society. So I mean, I don't make up the rules. It is what it is. And you guys should read it that way. You have to realize that the rest of the world does not share these ideas, these liberal ideas that exist in the West, right? The rest of the world is they have their traditions, their customs, and their beliefs, and they're not changing. And I think that's an
Right.
important message for someone who's coming to Vietnam. You touched on it a little bit earlier in the video, but I think it's important to emphasize that you really are not there to change their culture. In a lot of ways, it really is just an acting job. And to some extent, that's even true at higher level schools, because I do know for a fact that even the top international schools, they may want degrees and requirements, but they still do prioritize good looking younger white teachers, things like that. Although those schools, because they are teaching, the elite, obviously, they're going to be more qualification based than like in a training center, which might be solely based on characteristics rather than on skills or academic ability. But I think it's another thing that's worth mentioning to you guys too, is that teaching English in the sense of TEFL teaching is not really an academic pursuit. Like there's these non-natives who will run around and cry online that, oh, we're as good as native speakers, I can teach you grammar. And it's like, yeah, but the Vietnamese teachers can also teach them grammar. They don't really need that. They need conversational English with people who have a specific accent. And it's just as much about the culture and having their kids exposed to the culture, So that's one of the reasons why people who are non-natives from Europe, they might get a little bit less, like you were saying. It's possible they could get 15 or so, but non-natives from developing countries may get much, much less than 15 an hour. People from African countries may get like $900 a month or even less. And a lot of times they're not treated well. I've heard of situations where they've had their passports taken. Vietnam is a developing country, guys, and gangster shit does go on.
Yeah, it definitely does. Well, if you think about it, I mean, look at the government. I don't know if I should say it or not, but they get corrupted a lot. So when that happens, it throws a monkey wrench into the system, and it kind of messes with being a foreigner as a teacher or where you're coming from. I mean, I don't know. Just don't get caught up with it, because there's always tomorrow will be something different the next day. But just make sure you're trying not to make a scene like some people do.
So I think the point, what you're trying to say makes a lot of sense. I think what you're trying to say is that, don't make waves. Things are going to go wrong. Vietnam has been trying their best to deal with corruption. They've replaced prime ministers. They've replaced, high top level officials. They've had purges within immigration, but it just seems to be an elusive situation to fully fix. When you have a culture that has a culture of giving gifts, and especially around business, whenever there's any kind of favor or something you need done in Vietnam, usually that's accompanied with gifts. This tradition long predates the present state, right? So it's very difficult to change people's mindsets, and it's going to take a lot of time. And I think that's something that a lot of these online people, these online YouTubers or these online TEFL brands, they try to paint the country as if it's a developed country, and they try to paint it as if you're going to a corporate job in Canada. But I think that that's not doing anybody any favors. And it's not to take anything away from Vietnam's efforts to curb corruption. Like, hats off to them for trying to organize their society. I mean, it's a great country, and I wish them nothing but success. But it's important to be based and to live in reality. And you should have your eyes open, and you shouldn't be naive when you come to a place like Vietnam, because you definitely can get hurt. There's a lot of disingenuous employers. The teaching business is a big money business. So there's a lot of people who are, fly by night kind of scammy operations. And I think that's where our service offers like a real value. We're able to help people kind of navigate through the sea of dishonest and disingenuous actors, and find people who are more reliable and who will pay you on time and give you some idea of like what to look for in terms of business culture and negotiations with employers.
There are so many companies that will not even think twice about taking your cash on you. And I'm not trying to blow smoke with you, but I know at least 80 to 100 guys that you or people or women that have worked here that I've either on your channel can probably see us partying sometimes. Your networking doesn't just stop at other schools. Like you got so many teachers that you have on your networking channels that, for instance, last year, one of them got me extra work. You know, hey, you know what? They put on your post and I got extra work through it. So you always are going to get extra opportunities. Because you're legit, you know, you're not, you know, you've been doing it I've been here almost 5 years. I know the companies. You've been here longer. You know way more companies and way more people. And some of these companies are really big companies that you think, oh, they can't be bad. They're huge. They're all over Vietnam, you know, and you know those companies and can steer away from them. And that's huge. And making that transition into Vietnam, not worrying about that, not worrying about where you got to live, because you'll know when you get that job, you're going to live within 10, 15 minutes max of a scooter ride from where you're living. Because, you know, as we talked in other videos, very important to live close to your school. And that is like one package with you. And it made it so much easier for all these people. I party with them all the time. I mean, I'm hanging out all over the place. I go out. So I hang out with the whole crew, all of us. So it's definitely legit. You know your people.
So yeah, we put you guys into a network, not just of HR people, visa services, local fixers, but also other teachers who can give you their perspective. So if you are thinking about teaching, definitely reach us on the Facebook fan page and we can help you guys get lined up, degree or no degree. I'll talk to anybody. Non-native speakers, if you're from a European country, I can help. If you're from the Middle East or Africa, it's not going to be too easy. White South Africans, I can help. But most of the African countries, it's very difficult. A lot of the employers, they just, at least in my network, are not interested. It doesn't mean that they don't exist. It doesn't mean that you couldn't come to the country yourself if you're able to get a visa and potentially find an employer. But it is much more difficult. And even if you're highly qualified, you're still going to be the last pick. So I would say I could help, but given that my service is marketed towards people in the West, my consulting fees reflect that. So I don't know that my service is really designed for people from non-natives from like Middle East or Africa. It's more so for people coming from like US, Canada, Western Europe, who are, you know, financially able to, you know, afford a service like what we offer. It's essentially a concierge service. So we help expats relocate, whether it's to retire or they're digital nomads and they just have overseas income, or they are a teacher, and they want to find a reliable employment and they just want to have everything done for them. So when they arrive, they have this extensive network already and it's much easier for them to move. You know, we help people in all different types of situations and all different circumstances. So you know, if you are someone who is coming from a country like the US and you're, you know, working a lot, you don't like some of the issues in the society, social degeneracy, lots of the problems that are going on, and you've just had enough, you know, whether or not you have overseas income or you need to work in the local economy, reach us and we can definitely help. So I would say that one of the most common misconceptions that I get, and also that I think people seem to misunderstand me about, is the TEFL industry. So a lot of people think that I say that you don't need a TEFL at all and that TEFLs are a scam entirely. And that's not really what I'm saying. So I think I should clarify that. The TEFL industry in itself, I believe, is a scam. But I don't think that inherently getting a TEFL is a bad idea or the wrong thing to do. And if you have a degree and you're trying to get a work permit through the legal channels, you're going to need a TEFL. Where I disagree with the industry is the way that they sort of portray teaching. I don't think they portray teaching in a very honest way. I think it can be very disingenuous how they make it seem like the teaching environment's going to be in the majority of training centers and public schools in Vietnam, right? I also think that the price point at which they charge for some of these in-classroom TEFLs, you know, it can be a lot. Like some of them are over $2,000 for like a 2-week course. And you could actually pay, I don't know, my wife paid $9 for her
I
TEFL on
paid
Groupon.
25 for 150 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've never
she's
once used anything that they taught me on the TEFL in teaching in Vietnam. Not once have I ever used, once I'm repeating this, not once have I used TEFL anything to teach in Vietnam. Never once.
Well, that's what I'm saying. My wife never had a problem, and her TEFL cost $9. You know, so I'm not saying that it's not a bad thing, that it's a bad thing, and that you shouldn't get a TEFL. You should get a TEFL, but don't sink thousands of dollars.
Well, dude, you just saved them thousands of dollars. You don't even know it. If they're listening to you right now, they're going to say, you know what? Forget the TEFL place I was going to go to, because there's a lot of them here that will say, come to our TEFL school. We'll put you up in a place for a month. And the month, it's so cheap. You don't need, you do everything on your own. I was going to do it, almost got suckered into it for 1,800, but then I changed, listened to you, and I changed my mind and got it for 25 bucks online. And so he just saved you $2,000. You're welcome.
So I think let's talk about that, because I think that's like, this is something I think a lot of people don't know about the TEFL industry. So a lot of these places will put you in accommodation. You don't need someone to put you in accommodation, guys. They're going to just rent out a cheap room for like, you know, I don't know, whatever it is, like 400,000 Vietnam dong a night or something like this, right? Which will cost them nothing, since they're charging you like $2,500 for 2 weeks or something.
Right.
You can easily get your own accommodation very cheaply. You can eat very cheaply. You don't need anyone to really do that for you. My clients, I just connect them to people who own short-term guest houses that are very good and reliable. I connect them to real estate agents, and I just let them sort out the accommodation that's suitable for them. With a TEFL course, you're going to be put in whatever accommodation these individuals decide to put you in, right? And then the other thing that I think is also not really clear about the TEFL industry is that they're going to have you doing all these different things that you are never going to use. Like Hollywood was saying, like they'll tell you to, oh, take your desks and put them in a big circle. How are you going to take a class of 50 kids and put 50 desks in a circle?
60 students and put them in a horseshoe.
Yeah, good luck with that. You know, and I think that's a misconception as well. Like, I think like they're teaching in a broad way, and they're trying to give you like I guess it's like a well-rounded idea of how to teach. Maybe that works in like Poland or Spain. Probably not going to work in a Ho Chi Minh City public school. Probably not going to work in Cambodia. You know what I mean? Like
somewhere in Asia where you're going to have 50, 60 students. That's it. Like you might have 45 minutes in a class. The first 10 is gone, and then everybody's screaming on their phones, and you're still trying to get them in the horseshoe.
Yeah.
Or put
and it's chaos. And in the public schools, it's chaos. It's hot. It's dirty. A lot of the traditional way of building in Vietnam is that the schools and the buildings are very open. And, you know, I've had public schools that I've taught in open next to open construction sites where dust is blowing in through the open windows and through, you know, so these environments can be a little bit crazy in which you could possibly be teaching. You know, a lot of people don't want to necessarily teach in large cities. But if you don't have documents, I caution people to go too far from Saigon, because if you're going to teach without a degree in a province, you know, if you think the business culture in Saigon is difficult, it can be very, very different in a province. And these places can be a little bit like little kingdoms. Now, I'm not saying there aren't some good centers or some good jobs in those places. Like you certainly will have less pollution, less crowding. But you will definitely be in a little kingdom, and your school may know the police very well. They may know immigration very well. So it'll be easy for them potentially to sort out paperwork. But if there's any kind of problems or misunderstandings, they may be the only show in town. They also may be directly connected to the authorities. So you may have no recourse if something dishonest is done to you. Whereas in a big city like Ho Chi Minh, if you lose one job, it's really relatively easy to rock up somewhere else and find another job.
Yeah, it's so big. There's so many schools. I mean, you could walk down the street and pass 3 English schools. I mean, there's so many now. If you go to a little province, probably the only school, you're the only foreigner teacher working there. Everybody, you're like a star because you're the only, you go to a park, everybody knows you. That's standing out. So I would say you need your work permit with your degrees for places like that. Or if you want to teach near the beaches, Da Nang, Triang, Queen Young, places like that, you'll be easier. You can get it, but it'll be easier with the degree. And those are places that you might want to teach a little bit. They're bigger cities and they're near the beach, but you're still closed in. But if you just want to get work fast, quick, and you might not have a degree, Saigon, Ho Chi Minh.
Yeah, and in the provinces, like you will find employers that'll hire you without a degree. The thing is like kind of like what Hollywood is alluding to. You're going to have the better, more reputable schools in those places that are more likely to pay you are going to probably want some paperwork. But I have had friends who've worked in provinces without documents and they've been fine. So it does depend a lot on the school. The places like that are very desirable. I think this is a big one, and I think we should touch on this. A lot of misconceptions about where you're going to find work in Vietnam. Even if you do have a degree in Nha Trang or in Da Nang or in these places, most people who are out there teaching are not getting enough work in one place. They're having to go to several different places, a couple hours here, a couple hours there. Pay is very low. Generally speaking, even if you have a degree or a specific background in education, there's only a couple top tier schools that pay well. They very often fire the foreigners at the end of the year so that they don't have to give them any more money because they know that they can be easily replaced in those places. Many people want to be in places like Da Nang, they want to be in places like Nha Trang, but when it comes to actually trying to make it there working as a teacher, it's going to be a subsistence life and it's not going to be really what you think it is. There's also going to be a lot less opportunity. You're highly replaceable. The pay is going to be much lower because local people in those cities don't earn much money. Generally speaking, the people who have wealth are in some of the provincial cities that have specific industries, or obviously Saigon, Hanoi being the capital, and parts of the north that are industrialized. These are the places where you're going to earn the higher salaries and there's going to be the most available work. Now, business culture is very different from the north and the south, and a lot of people find it very difficult to do anything in the north. It can be a very challenging place to work or do business. The Saigonese are more similar to Cambodians in terms of culture. They're more laid back, more smiley. They have a positive image of foreigners. So if you are someone who's just kind of adjusting to the country, even though Saigon can be daunting, it's a big, dirty city, it's a very good place for you to start out. And I think a lot of people who have this fantasy of that they're going to come to Vietnam and they're going to make it full-time teaching in Da Nang, I think for the vast majority of people, that's not going to happen. I think it can happen, but it's going to be a very small group of people who have the right paperwork, who can get into the right types of schools. I think the vast majority, like a friend of mine, he lived up there for a while and he was a teacher and he lived in a very subsistence lifestyle where he was eating only basically 50-cent dollar bowls of pho, living way outside of the city. And even then, he was only making about $900 to $1,000 a month because he was only able to get a few hours at one school, a few hours at a different school. It wasn't stable. It wasn't consistent. Whereas Saigon, you can work, or even in Hanoi to some extent, you can work in a public school during the day. You can work in a training center in the evening. You can really refill your bank account if you so desire.
You get people, like I have a bunch of students that I tutor at night or when, you don't want to be a complete goofball. I mean, just do what they ask. You'll know the students that can afford tutoring through and then, because at the end of the day, when the pearly gates open and school is released and you walk through the massive family Vietnamese people and you're the white monkey just walking through, the parents of the ones that have some dough where you can say, I can tutor him on the side. He's got a lot of opportunity and it works. But those pearly gates, you have, if you look at, as we mentioned before, you will have a better opportunity.
It's funny that you bring up pearly gates because I've been in schools where they've locked those pearly gates and where like if there was like a fire, there's no way out. Like literally the security guy will put a padlock on and then go like run errands. I've been in
Yeah.
classrooms where the teachers left the classroom and put a padlock on the door of the classroom. So all the children are basically locked into like a fourth floor window. Fourth floor schoolroom where the only way out would be to jump out of a 4-story window. So again, I want to reiterate this, guys, like Vietnam still is a developing country and there's a lot of things that do still have a long way to go. And I think like what's commonly misunderstood about teaching here is that people tend to portray it like you're going to get a job in Korea or in Japan. Vietnam, in terms of development, is behind that. It's improving quickly. It's developing very quickly. I've watched it grow before my eyes, but there's still a lot of things that haven't necessarily caught up with development. And you need to be a patient person. You need to have a sense of humor. You can't take things too personally. And I do want to stress to you guys that it is a developing country and you are not going to live in Canada or the UK. The business culture is going to be very different. The mindset is going to be very different. If you guys agree with me, if you've been a teacher in Vietnam, please leave it in the comment section. If you disagree with me, tell me what you think I'm getting wrong. Leave it in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you guys.
Well, I think you might have some trolls about when you say, people of color might not be able to get started. I'm sure some people are, I got a job. I got a job. Once again, it's possible to get a job. It's just much harder.
No, if
As
you're a
far
Black
as you say,
American,
go ahead.
if you're a Black American, you're going to get a job. If you're a Indian American or a Pakistani American or whatever your background is, you're going to get a job. You may not be the first pick in every single place, but you're still going to be a top pick because you still have a U.S. passport, right?
Right.
Now, if you're from Nigeria, that's different. That's going to be a different situation.
Correct. The more African countries or are
Middle
the ones that
East,
have the issues. Yeah, Middle East have
Central
their issues.
Asia.
But once again, when you come work here, I want to touch a little bit what you said about the craziness.
Mhm.
You'll be teaching on the 4th floor. The bell rings, you leave. All the teachers leave, all the adults leave. You're teaching 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders, and they're all hanging over the balconies. That's something you got to get used to as a teacher. Like you kind of walk away like, oh, some of these kids gonna fall off. Because they're crazy. They're
Yeah,
crazy.
wild.
And it makes you think like you just got to walk away. Like if they do, I don't want to see it. That's like something you might want to get. That might take you a little bit to get used to. When it's break time, it's loud. Like luckily some places have teacher rooms with air con, some don't, or you might go to a cafe. If you go to a cafe every day, you're going to spend a lot more money a month. But that's why if you live close on your breaks, you can go home. And you don't have to listen to them screaming and falling off the balconies, or when you walk by, they're tugging on you. They're very affectionate people. They're going to touch you. They're going to pull your hair. They're not used to seeing it. You're a big monster to them. That's something that you probably aren't told when you get your job. They're going to touch you as you walk by. They're going to everything. So if you don't like to be touched or violated sometimes, you might want to start getting touched now and warmed up before you come to Vietnam, because these kids are gonna, like I said, touch your butt, your hair, your nose, and they pull on your. So that's something that you probably won't know about working here.
And decibel level. Like when I worked in the public schools, I would work with earplugs because it's a tonal language. And basically all the kids are screaming at the same time to where my ears started to pop, which is definitely damaging your ears. So I would wear, I know it sounds funny because I'm an English teacher, right? So I'm teaching speaking, yet I can't hear anything. But that's because the room is so loud that without wearing earplugs, I was damaging my hearing. Also, the kids, like, I'll touch on what you said where the kids touch you. When you first get to the country, you're not going to be used to the bacteria in Southeast Asia. And most people get very sick their first couple of years because the kids, a lot of times, they'll have a school of 300 kids. There'll maybe be one bar of soap in the entire school. The kids may not wash their hands at all. They'll sneeze and they'll, oh, teacher, high five. So you can get very sick. It's real.
That's why I do the Bash Brothers, Mark McGuire or Jose Canseco, the forearm bash. With the girls, I'll do the little heart, so you don't have to touch their fingers and forearms.
Yeah, you do this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody gets sick.
And guys, most of the time the kids are cool. Like you get classes where they're all little fucks, but for the most part, you get pretty cool kids. Even if sometimes they don't speak English, they can still be pretty charming and nice. It really depends a lot. It's luck of the draw. You could go to one school and have one class full of kids that are wonderful, and the next class full of kids when you want to kill yourself, right? So,
Right.
you have to have a kind of a flexible attitude. You have to be kind of laid back if you really want to be successful doing this. And you definitely have to not think too much of yourself. You really got to come in with a specific kind of mindset and recognize that in their culture, things are different and it is their culture, and it's not really our job to try to change their culture. And we're being paid like a lot more than most local people. Like your teacher's aide, for example, is probably making about $100 to $200 a month. Whereas, if you're a native speaker from like the US, UK, Canada, Australia, even if you're non-white, guys, like it doesn't really matter. What matters the most is nationality. Now, I have a client who's Filipino American, and he had a very difficult time finding a job by himself. As soon as he partnered with me, he's already got a job, right?
Oh,
So 100%. Yeah, these guys went out drinking. You guys watch on my Instagram, some of the advertisements we do is a short little video of them all hanging out together on Boy VN. But yeah, like, it is, there is challenges to it. And like, it doesn't mean that it's not like accomplishable and that it's this insurmountable task if you're not white. It's not the case. But if you have a passport from like African countries, Central Asia, Middle East, then it's a much more difficult situation. So just, it's not so much racial as it is about nationality.
No, and I would also throw in there, come prepared. For instance, the kid from the Philippines, or he's from America, but he's Filipino. He came with like pennies in his pocket, and he was under so much pressure. It got to him. Like, when I was talking to him, you could just see it. Come prepared. Come with $2,000 in your pocket. Even if you got a job lined up, you just don't want to be having that stress of it being in a new place and can I make it? And I mean, that's the biggest thing. Just even if you weren't a Boy Scout, leave a comment if you were, or a Girl Scout or a Brownie, whatever you were. Come prepared. That's badge number one. Always prepared.
Good advice. That's good advice. Honestly, you don't want to be broke in a developing country. It takes about a month to get paid in most jobs. So,
40 days.
Your payday, it may be like offset. So it may be pay on the 10th, it may be pay on the 7th, it may be pay on the 8th. So there's going to be a period of time before you get paid. So you need to have some capital to survive for that time. A couple $1,000 should do it if you want to live in a very, like moderate lifestyle. If you want to have a little bit more comforts, maybe $5,000, I think would probably be adequate.
Yeah, $5,000, you're set, and don't even stress. You come with $2,000, but if you have a job, you come with $2,000. If you don't have a job, $2,000 is good, but more is better.
Yeah, definitely. And when you come matters a lot too. Like we talked about earlier in the video, right now is peak hiring time.
Right. Once you get done, like in the video, get Delta or United and get over here, because now is the time. They do not pay me to say that. I'm just, that's usually who I use. I usually use United. But come now. School start. My company just told me school starts September, beginning of September. And if you don't have your work permit, they're going to have to take time to get it and everything. So while you're here, while everything's getting ready, you can travel around. It's super cheap. I just traveled. It cost me $20 to get where I was going. So, you can experience, you can try all the new foods and everything instead of saving all your pennies and pinching them, and come and enjoy it. You're here to enjoy life. You're getting out of the hustle and the bustle of 150 hours a month and just making it. And then you want to switch it up and have some adventure in your life. And then you teach in Vietnam. So you want to be prepared for all that. So you don't want to be held back.
Yeah, I mean, there's cons like pollution, overcrowding, overpopulation, but there's a lot of pros, guys. Like you can live for a very low cost of living. You get a very reasonable standard of living for not much money. You can travel. Traveling is very inexpensive. The Vietnamese are pretty hospitable people, generally very accommodating and very kind, especially in the South. The people in the South are very warm. It's a good country. You can really do a lot for yourself there. Even me, like when business is slow, like I go back and I teach occasionally. Like I'm probably going to go back in September, and I may do a little bit of teaching while I'm out there. I'm still going to do consulting mostly. That'll be the main thing I do, but I'll teach a bit just to kind of supplement the income and put
Well, I
away a
think it
little
would be
extra
good for
money.
you to teach because it's been updated a little bit. You work
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
month and you get just refreshed with what's going on yourself.
absolutely. And I mean, it's always good to come, refill the bank account a little bit for the next adventure, decide where I want to go take on after Vietnam, and then hustle for a while to save up. Because at the moment, my wife and I are working on our Italian citizenship, so we need to go spend some time in Italy. My case is going to be done through lawyers because it's a 1948 case. Guys, if you're interested in Italian citizenship by descent, we're going to be releasing a series on that soon, so make sure to subscribe and look for that. But her case is more direct, and we're going to probably do it in the province where her family comes from. So it makes sense to go to Vietnam. We'll stack a bunch of paper, and then we can go cool out in southern Italy for a little bit off of the money that we make from doing a little extra teaching while we're in Vietnam. So it's a great place to come make some money. If you're looking for a partner, dating is better in Vietnam than it is in Thailand and places like that. You're more likely to find like an actual partner who's not a prostitute, who's not freelancing, who's not
Or a lady
trying to
boy.
get you. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's bad people everywhere, but there's much more like genuine relationships that are happening in Vietnam compared to some of the neighboring countries where, Philippines or Thailand, where there can be a lot of issues on preying on like these guys who come out there. And there is sex tourism in Vietnam, but it's much more swept under the rug and kind of behind closed doors compared to Thailand. Like you don't really have these sex mega malls like you do in Bangkok, like not
May
quite
I
the
tell my
same.
story? May I tell
Please do.
a story? Matter of fact, it was next to somebody we used to use for visa stuff. Right next to was a bar, and I walked in. I thought it was a bar, and all I seen was old white men with young Vietnamese boys. I'm
Oh
like, what?
God.
I had a beer. I had a beer. I don't care. And I got out quick. It was it was like a Twilight Zone. If you know it's Twilight Zone, leave some comments. It's a good show, my age a little bit. It was weird. And then I've gone to other bars where when I first moved here, they look real. They look real. They're not. That's what I'm going to say.
Mhm. Well, yeah, but again, it's more behind closed doors than it is in like places like Thailand or even in Cambodia where it can be very like out on the streets. And I think like Vietnam is a good place. It's a place where you can get a lot done. I think it's a happy medium between the authoritarianness of China and the kind of lax, like laid backness of Cambodia. It's enough of the entrepreneurial culture to where people are hustling and they have a money mindset, but it's still laid back. So I really do think it offers a good compromise. Like you're not going to have the same salaries necessarily as you would in China, but everything's cheaper.
Right.
Cost of living is lower. And again, the people have a favorable opinion of the West. I think that's another common misconception. If you're coming from the West, you might be thinking about the world in an American mindset if you're an American and thinking, oh, they don't like us because of the Vietnam War. But guys, the Vietnam War was only like 20 years and it was like a long time ago. Most people alive now don't remember the
50
Vietnam
years?
War.
50 years? I think we just
I,
celebrated 50 years.
yeah, something like that. It's pretty long. And the Chinese occupied Vietnam for like hundreds of years. So there's a very different mindset about like than what you think it is. Like to them, China is the most pressing threat, not the West. Generally, the West
Right.
is viewed
Well,
favorably in
because
most of
China
Vietnam.
is China is messed up, but if you're in the States, China's the boogeyman, right? China's the big
Mhm.
boogeyman in the room. So you're gonna hear a lot of negatives and stuff about that. Or Vietnam by far, I think if you're gonna move to Asia, as I have been to Thailand and Cambodia, Vietnam is much more easier, smooth transition, and you'll make a little bit more money. Whereas Cambodia, and it's a different system in Cambodia. I mean, you have videos on it; they can check it out.
Yep.
So Cambodia, you might make less money and might cost more to live, but it's a little different. Thailand, you
It's
might work more,
easier.
but yeah.
It's
So
easier
I
for
would say
visas than.
Vietnam's your first choice.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say China is a boogeyman. China, like, literally occupies people's countries. They swallowed Tibet, they swallowed Xinjiang. They basically have a lot of influence in certain countries in Southeast Asia. And it is nice to be in a country like Vietnam, where for the most part, it's a generally pro-West attitude at the moment. And that's, to me, some level of peace of mind with all the instability in the world. It's nice to be in a country that has a good relationship with your nationality. It definitely is a little bit more peace of mind if shit were to really hit the fan and get crazy. Another thing I should mention to you guys is, because you are in the region, travel is very inexpensive. It's very easy for you to go to other countries. It's very easy for you to go to other parts of Vietnam.
Super cheap. If you want to take a bus to Cambodia, it might cost you $20, $25, depending what kind of bus. Maybe you want a sleeper or something, might run you $30. To stay, I have on my channel, Hollywood's Journey. I got some videos on hotels in Cambodia that are pretty cheap, and you can see what you get with your money. But it's pretty cheap to get in and out. For some reason, though, flying to Cambodia is expensive. More expensive than
Yeah.
flying to Thailand
Well, it's
or
because
South
it's
Korea.
two small airports. So you have, Saigon is a small airport, Phnom Penh is a small airport, Bangkok is a hub.
Right. So that it's a little bit more expensive to fly there. But there's so many different ways to get there. And as far as like Laos, Malaysia, those prices are pretty cheap to fly round trips. I mean, it's crazy. Even if you want to stay within Vietnam, I go to Nha Trang, which is probably my favorite beach part.
Mine too.
You get a sleeper if you don't, because if you fly, you got to fly into Cam Ranh, then it's an hour from that airport, or you just get a sleeper at 10 o'clock at night, and you go to sleep, you wake up, and you're there. It's like $30. I mean, to stay. I have some reviews in some of these cities on my channel. $35 a night, and it's a 2-bedroom high rise. I mean, it's crazy. So cheap.
And guys, I have a whole series on the Trang if you're interested, because I was living up there not too long ago. And it is a very nice city. For teaching, it's going to be very limited, though. People don't earn a lot of money in the Trang. Again, I think that since this is a video that's kind of dispelling a lot of rumors and a lot of things that are not true about teaching, it's important to kind of remind people that the majority of the jobs will be in places like Saigon, Hanoi, the industrialized north, or some of the more wealthy provinces in the south that have specific industries to where there's a need to have a native speaker, right? Places that rely heavily on tourism, Moi Ne, Nha Trang, Da Nang, these places, it can be a little bit more challenging to get enough hours to be able to support yourself. They are inexpensive to live. It's great if you're a digital nomad. Hollywood touched on this before. Cambodia is very easy for visa independence, but it's a saturated market. Salaries are low. And even if you have a degree, like a good friend of mine has a master's degree, and the most he was ever offered was 1,500. And that's in the entire, going around all of the capital city in Phnom Penh. Whereas, he went and taught in a province for a while, and he came in instantly at 2 Gs a month. So, I mean, Vietnam is a much better place if you need to earn money than some of the neighboring countries. But Cambodia would probably be a better place if you're looking to have a small business, because foreigners can own businesses, or if you're looking to retire, Cambodia has retirement visas. Whereas Vietnam, we can still help you. Like, I can help you get long-term visas if you're looking to retire, but it is not a straightforward process.
I heard Vietnam's going to start having retirement visas.
I mean, yeah, I guess it remains to be seen if that happens, but I mean, it would be a good thing. It would be, it would be something I would love to see.
I think they're starting off, you're going to have $2,000 a month to have a retirement visa, but they believe they're going to push it up to $4,000. That's what I heard from a lawyer.
That's an insane amount of money for Vietnam. I've heard it too. I'm just not sure if it's going to happen. With these type of things, like another thing I think I should tell you guys is, like, You can largely ignore things you hear in the Vietnamese English language press, and you can probably largely ignore most things you hear in Facebook groups. What
Impressed.
happens when the government does decide to issue some sort of a proclamation, they're going to issue like a formal release of whatever it is, the policy is, and it's going to have stamps on it. It's going to have the seal, you know. That's when you know what the rule or the law or the policy is going to be. And until you see that piece of paper, pretty much anything else is just speculation. Like you remember during the pandemic, there was that period where every week we heard Vietnam was going to open again,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
was
yeah.
just going to go right back to the way it was before the pandemic. And I kept saying it's not going to, guys. And until you see the piece of paper, you shouldn't believe anything that you hear, because there's a lot of misinformation. And generally, guys, the way that I get my information is I just work with Vietnamese people directly. Vietnam is in the process of taking their entire immigration system from paper to online, and that has created a lot of chaos over the last year. So getting things done like work permits, documents, it can be a little bit chaotic. But if you're working with the right school, you know, they have their own people, they know how to work, and they know how to work with the authorities, and they'll sort it out for you. If you have all your paperwork, it's definitely going to be easier. You're going to have more choices. If you don't have all your paperwork, don't let people tell you can't come. And if you're not white and you're from the US or Canada or UK, also don't listen to the guys who are extreme and saying, oh, you'll never get a job because you're not white, because that's also bullshit. I've gotten tons of people who aren't white jobs. The thing is that
I worked for a
nationality
guy from
does
Italy.
matter.
I worked for a guy
Mhm.
from Italy, from Serbia.
Mhm.
So I mean, and they didn't have a degree, and but they spoke pretty good English, and they were white. So I mean, I don't know if that mattered, but
That's what I'm trying to say. So like there's all these different circumstances, there's all these different things that schools may or may not be flexible on. There's schools that are not going to be racist at all. There's schools that are going to be very racist. There's schools that are going to be mostly focused on your nationality and not care about your race. And then there's going to be schools that are everything in between, right? So there is some place in the market for everyone. And I don't want anyone to feel like that they shouldn't try to come. Non-natives from very poor countries, I would just be very careful, because you're not going to be respected. You're not going to be treated well in the market. And the chances of someone trying to take advantage of you are going to be much higher. Whereas
and
if
you're
you're
gonna
a
get
US
insulted.
citizen, yeah, you're going to get insulted. There's situations where people have come from Africa and they've been promised that their kids would be allowed to go to school. They never let their kids go to school. They took their passport. They never paid them. So there's a lot of shady stuff that can go on in Vietnam. But if you're coming from like a, US, Canada, whatever, regardless of whatever your race is, Australia, New Zealand, you have a Western passport from one of the wealthier countries, you stick to the larger cities, you can have a very good life. There's lots of opportunity. There's nothing really to be scared of. You do need to be cautious. You do need to be cautious very much so with employers. But it's a nice place. And if we can be helpful to you, to help you weed through some of the dishonesty and the scams, help save you some money, like we tried to do in this video by giving you guys a little impression of the TEFL industry. So my whole position on the TEFL industry is that it's not a bad thing to have like a little bit of an idea about like teaching, but these guys who are selling these like expensive courses, like to me, it's a scam. I just
Yeah,
don't think
don't
it's
do it.
necessary. I don't think it's going to help you in any real material way. If you work with us, you can learn how to teach and get paid by doing it. I can tell you some ideas and things you can do just to get through it. But for the most part, guys, it's just show up and have fun. A lot of Vietnamese people I know have told me that they don't have the foreigner for their kids to learn English. A lot of times they have the foreigner for their kids to have fun, because their kids a lot of times in Asian cultures are in school all day long. So their time with you, they get to cut loose, they get to have a good time with the foreigner, and I don't see how there's anything really so wrong with that.
No, I've had schools tell me, like the night schools I've worked in, like I'm like, am I here to teach or am I here to entertain? You ask them that. Say, you're here to teach a little, but they want more games and stuff to keep them happy, to keep them coming back. That's, so don't be, they're very upfront with you. You can be upfront with, well, no, Vietnamese might be a little bit more touchy. You got to say it nicer or something. Don't be so blunt sometimes, I guess. But, you have to ask too, is it supposed to be more fun or more learning? And they'll say both, but it's actually always they want the last 15 minutes, 10 minutes game time. So to learn your games, Also, can I touch on the TEFL? When you get your TEFL and they ask you how many copies you want, I would say minimum 2, maximum 3, because sometimes I've heard teachers hand their stuff into some companies and then the company moves and they don't have it no more. So, you know, and get them translated into Vietnamese. So you have 2 copies or 3 copies. So if one's missing or lost or ripped, you have your extra ones. I've heard that a lot.
But again, if you have no documents, doesn't really matter, because if you don't have a degree, you can't get the work permit anyway. So what's the difference whether you have the TEFL or not? But it will maybe help with an employer.
Cambodia.
And again, they'll find a way to get you the work permit. The Vietnamese know how to work the system. You know, they'll figure it out.
Just make for $25. Yeah, and you don't even need the 150 hour. You get the 120 hour. If you have a college degree, you get the lowest hour possible. It could be $10. You know, getting it mailed to you is more expensive.
Yeah, my wife paid $9 for 120 hours and she never had a problem with any of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, if you agree with some of the points we've raised in this video, leave it in the comments section. If you disagree, let us know what you think. If you do have all your documents, reach out to us, because we can definitely help find you good jobs, help you get set up so you don't have to stress out, help you land in, you know, places that are reliable to stay so you don't have to worry about security and you can kind of just get used to the country at your own pace. And yeah, we can make it a lot easier for you. If you're someone who likes to feel secure and you're willing to pay a little bit in order to land in the country and have a network already, then I think we're the service for you. We've helped a lot of people. You can check us out on Facebook. We have the Facebook fan page. Also, for those of you who have been following us for a while, I've released a new channel. It's called Ronin Flow Grappling. It's all about my martial arts, my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, and judo all around the world. So please check that out. Check out Uncle Hollywood's channel. If you're thinking about coming to Southeast Asia, not just Vietnam, but anywhere, reach out to us, because we have an extensive network in a lot of these countries. I'm also establishing a network in South Asia now, and we have contacts in Europe as well. So whether you're a retiree or someone looking to be employed, you know, we can definitely help you start your life over and get out of the, you know, the stress and the high cost of living that is the West. I just want to ask Uncle Hollywood, is there any other points you feel that people really get wrong about teaching in Vietnam that you want to cover?
You have a lot of time on your hands. Most people think it's like if you're coming from America, you're working all day. You have a lot of time on your hands. You have a lot of breaks. If you're writing a book, if you're writing poems, or you're doing something on the side, you'll have plenty of time to work on that. A lot of people think when they come here, like I'll hear a lot, oh, I don't even work that much here. I mean, you're working, you know, if you're doing a morning and an afternoon, you're putting in probably 5 hours, but you have those breaks. You have a 25-minute break, then you have a 2-hour break or a 45-minute break, and you have a lot of time to do stuff with that. So if you read on Facebook and they say, oh, I'm worked to the bone, they have me working in the office, that might be international or something, or they're just trying to scare you. Your hours, you have breaks, and you have much time for yourself. You're working less than any country, whatever country you're from, you're working 30 hours less a month.
And guys, I think that's a great point. And it's also, I think something people get wrong is that they hear that, oh, it's only 20 hours a week. But the way it's set up, it's like several hours in the morning, long unpaid break, several hours in the afternoon. So like it does kind of eat up what would be almost like a 40-hour week. It's just that you're not working through most of it. Therefore, you're also not getting paid through most of it. So that's the public school life, which a lot of people do during the day. In the evenings, the training centers are usually about 5 p.m. until 8, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I went from 6 to 9 most of the time, 6 to 9, and with a break in the middle. But or sometimes I didn't. You get a 5-minute break from class to class. But normally you work about 3 hours at night. I did that 2 years ago. I did 120 hours a month, and I was working full time during the day public, 3 or 4 nights a week at the learning center and a little bit of tutoring. And I was doing 120 hours total. And I was making good money where I didn't have to worry about anything. Well, I was just going to say one other thing. If you go to my TikTok, which is also Hollywood's Journey, like my YouTube channel, I can use some followers and subscribers. I only have 285. I'm looking to get to 300. 300. I'm not asking for a lot. If you want to get me to 1,000, I'd appreciate it. I can go live everywhere. That's my goal, to go live everywhere. But let's push me to 300. Thank you very much.
Hollywood is a good egg. Support him. So if you guys are thinking about coming to Southeast Asia, like I said, reach me on the fan page. If you're looking to teach in Vietnam, now's a great time. Reach us. We charge a flat consulting fee. We help you get set up, and then we help you for years on end. Most of the people we work with, we're still friends with. You only pay us one off, and then we continue to work with you and help you. And if you need help with something in a year from now, we don't charge you again. The only time I ever charge more money is if it were to be something very big, like a blacklist removal or establishing a company or something that would involve me being, tethered to you for more than a year while you deal with Vietnamese bureaucracy, right? These type of situations I would have to charge again. But if you're just working with us for teaching and then next year you need a hookup on a job or an apartment, we're not going to ask you for any money. You're part of the family. You're in the network at that point. And again, we put you in a network of not just employers, local fixers, visa people, real estate people, but also teachers, people who are doing the same thing you're doing. And they can be a useful tool for advice, guidance, and anything else you might need. If you enjoyed this content, please take a second just to smash the like button and to hit the subscribe button. A large percentage of people who view the channel don't take a second to just hit the subscribe button. And if you do that, it would make me very happy. So please hit the like button, take a second to subscribe, and don't be shy. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on X. We're straightforward. We put it out there. No BS. Expat relocation consulting. We tell it like it is. There's no woke BS here. You're going to hear the reality. You're going to hear what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
The truth.
And I think that's why over the years, we built a reputation, and why we've been able to continue doing this is because we try to give people, a real understanding of what they're about to get involved in. And, sometimes, these situations, sometimes it works out great. People stay for years. Sometimes people come to places like Vietnam and they run home within a month or two because it's not what they thought it was going to be. So by dealing with us, you get to hear the positives, the negatives, and you get the real advice that you need to make a decision. I think classroom TEFLs are for people who really need to be like pat on their head and have their hand held. And our service is more for people who just want to come in, they're self-starters, they want to have a network, they want to already know the right people, they're looking for the convenience, but they're capable of doing it themselves. We can definitely help you, we can definitely get you started, and we can definitely provide you a level of security. So thank you for watching the video. We appreciate it, Uncle Hollywood appreciates it. This is a great time to change your life. Great time to start over and be a teacher. If you're not happy with what you're doing in the West, this is a great way out. And even if you're looking to come here and be an entrepreneur, teaching can be a great way to buy you time.
Do it. Don't think about it. Right now, watch the video, get the plane, land, come down, get a job, enjoy your life. Don't pay a lot of taxes. Don't worry about 150 hours a week. Don't worry about your car insurance. Don't worry about your $2,000 rent. Don't worry about your food. You can live here nicely, but you got to come down. Get in touch with this guy. Get here now.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. And thank you, Hollywood, for coming out and giving us some of your perspective on what it's like to be out there working in the public schools and the training centers in Ho Chi Minh. And yeah, guys, if you enjoy this content, there's lots more coming. So make sure you're subscribed.
Brush your face and wash your teeth, son.
Hey, what's up? I'm D from Canada. Hook up with the New York Nomad if you want a smooth ride into Vietnam or any Southeast Asian countries.
Hey, my name is Aaron. Get in contact with the New York Nomads. If you want to get into Vietnam, hit them up. They'll get you in securely and professionally.
Yo, this is Uncle Hollywood. I'm telling you right now, the New York Nomad got me a job. He's legit. Hit him up. Check him out.
New York Nomad set me up in Vietnam.
Yo, my man got me a job. Come to Vietnam.
Hey, what's up, guys? You thinking about coming to Vietnam? You're not sure where to start. You've heard a lot of things online. You don't know what's true. You don't know what's not. We offer a consulting service where we help you get on your feet in Vietnam. We give you advice on negotiating contracts with employers. We help you with real estate agents, visa agents that are reliable and that you can trust. We help you get started in this amazing country and get on your feet. We help you get into different opportunities that might be more difficult for you if you were just landing in the country on your own. And we help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls and problems problems that you could have as a newcomer here. We provide you with reliable job recruiters, visa agents, real estate agents, and advice. If you guys are thinking about coming to Vietnam, hit us up for a consultation. We'll help you get started, help you get on your feet, and hopefully you'll love Vietnam as much as we do.